Beneath the moonlit waters of the World War II Pacific, on November 16, 1943, a predator lurked in the depths, Japan's I-176. A KD-7 type submarine, it was a lone wolf with a deadly mission. Unlike its IJN counterparts, often overshadowed by the German U-boats, this vessel was about to write a dark chapter in naval history. The I-176 had received orders to patrol the waters south of Truk, a strategic location for the Imperial Japanese Navy. Allied intelligence had intercepted these orders, sending out warnings to their submarines in the area, including the USS Corvina Gato-class submarine. But the warnings fell on deaf ears, or perhaps it was already too late. As the clock struck 11:12 p.m., I-176's lookouts spotted a shadowy figure in the distance. It was the USS Corvina, unaware and vulnerable. Lieutenant Commander Yamaguchi Kozaburo gave the order, quote, "Dive and turn towards the target." Minutes later, torpedoes were unleashed, and the ocean roared in response. The I-176 was about to accomplish something an enemy submarine had never done before. Throughout their service in World War II, Japanese submarines encountered many challenges, including a scarcity of essential resources, issues with torpedoes, particularly faulty ones during the early stages of the war, and the development of effective anti-submarine warfare tactics by Allied forces. As a point of comparison, the Japanese submarine fleet is credited with sinking only 184 merchant ships in the Pacific, compared to around 1,300 sunk by the US in the same theater, and nearly 3,000 sunk by German U-boats in the Atlantic. Despite these formidable obstacles, these underwater vessels were engaged in various encounters across the Pacific, achieving some early successes, such as disrupting Allied shipping routes and occasionally sinking enemy vessels, including 2 American fleet carriers in 1942. Among these submarine models, the KD-7 type Kaidai submarine played a pivotal role. With a reported maximum submerged speed of 9.2 miles per hour beneath the Pacific waters, this submarine type, designed as a large cruiser submarine, could undertake missions lasting up to 75 days in distant waters. This role was analogous to that of surface cruisers, whose primary role was to endlessly scout for the battle fleet. Within the IJN's Kaidai-class submarine fleet, the KD-7 type was the most numerous, comprising the construction of 10 boats. However, of these 10, indeed out of the entire arsenal of Japanese submarines, none would prove more successful than I-176. Upon completion, I-176 was deployed to Truk in September 1942. The naval base in the Truk Lagoon served as the Empire's crucial stronghold in the South Pacific theater of the war, a fortified structure that shielded the Navy from Allied forces in New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. This vital bastion played an indispensable role in IJN operations against the advancing Allies. On October 13th, an American carrier group was sighted on the horizon near the Solomon Islands. Swiftly, the order resonated through the depths of the Pacific, summoning all Japanese submarines in the vicinity to seize the opportunity. Among this undersea squadron, the I-176 was about to get her first taste of blood. Moving into position, 120 miles southeast from Akira Island, the submarine sprang into action. On October 20th, she struck with precision, her torpedoes finding their mark on the USS Chester, a Northampton-class cruiser. The outcome of this daring attack was a scene of devastation. The cruiser suffered severe damage, with 11 lives lost and 12 souls wounded. Subsequently, it remained inoperative for nearly a year. Only 1 month into her operational service, the I-176 submarine had already proven herself as a formidable adversary for any Allied ship that crossed her path. Following this achievement, the decision was made to repurpose I-176, along with her sister submarines I-177 and I-181, for cargo duty, despite being in the relatively early stages of their service. Consequently, for the remainder of their careers, these cruiser submarines would primarily engage in supply missions to remote island garrisons in the Pacific. Now assigned a transport role, I-176 had her 120mm gun removed and replaced with equipment for a landing craft. After this significant refit, she received orders to sail to Guadalcanal. In December 1942, she flawlessly executed the first submarine resupply operation for the Japanese garrison on the island. However, in March 1943, during a similar resupply mission, I-176 found herself under attack in Lae, Papua New Guinea, targeted by US B-25 Mitchell bombers while unloading critical provisions. Narrowly escaping destruction, Her commander, Yahachi Tanabe, sustained injuries from the bomber's machine gun fire, leading to his departure from command in the following days. After undergoing months of repairs in Japan, I-176 resumed her duties in New Guinea, completing numerous successful supply runs between July and October 1943. In early November, she received orders to sail to Truk. However, her instructions were intercepted by U.S. signals intelligence. As a result, many American submarines in the Truk area were alerted to the presence of a Japanese submarine in the vicinity. Among them was the USS Corvina. When USS Corvina, a Gato-class fleet submarine, received her commission in the summer of 1943, American naval strategists were charting a new course in the Pacific theater. Having achieved victories in the Solomon Islands, their focus now turned to the strategically vital Gilbert Islands, with their airfields and crucial communication channels. The stage was set for the assaults on Tarawa, Makin, and Apamama, all scheduled for November 20th, 1943. Before embarking on her maiden mission, the crew of the newly christened USS Corvina, numbering 82 personnel, underwent an intensive 3-week training program in Oahu, Hawaii. During their off hours, the men also enjoyed swimming and relaxing on the beach, cherishing their final moments of relaxation before heading out to defend their country at sea. Under the command of Commander Roderick S. Rooney, Corvina left Oahu on November 4th, 1943. As part of Task Force 53, she was tasked with landing the United States Marine Corps' 2nd Marine Division on Tarawa. The submarine's mission, shared with 9 others, was a perilous one: to patrol Truk as closely as possible, intercepting any Japanese reinforcements or warships that might sortie and threaten the impending American invasion of the Gilbert Islands. After refueling at Johnston Island on November 6th, USS Corvina set her course for the assigned patrol area. At this crucial moment, American intelligence intercepted a cryptic message from the Japanese submarine I-176. It read, quote, "Received a direct torpedo hit en route to Truk. No damage." Initially, America believed I-176 had been hit by a defective torpedo from one of their submarines. Some suspected the salvo came from USS Corvina itself, but this was never confirmed. On November 16th, I-176 was traveling north, partially submerged at a speed of 16 knots, approximately 300 miles south of Truk Island. Just past 11 at night, lookouts spotted a dark object illuminated by the moonlight, about 8,000 yards away. Promptly, the Japanese submarine's captain, Lieutenant Commander Yamaguchi, ordered his ship to dive and turn towards their target. The Japanese mistakenly identified this mysterious ship as a Perch-class submarine in the process of recharging its batteries. However, the ship was no Perch-class. It was USS Corvina. Shortly after midnight, the Japanese submarine initiated a crash dive and switched to silent running mode, closing in until they were just 2,700 yards from Corvina's starboard side. When the firing angle appeared too challenging for a clean shot, Lieutenant Commander Yamaguchi ordered his submarine to resurface 15 minutes later. However, before they could execute the order, Corvina altered her course towards I-176. Yamaguchi responded by maneuvering his vessel to keep Corvina on his port side. A confrontation was now inevitable. At precisely 1:20 in the morning, the moment arrived. I-176, in a well-prepared position, launched 3 torpedoes from her bow tubes at Corvina. Less than a minute later, 2 deafening explosions, powerful enough to shake the nearby I-176, echoed through the Pacific Ocean. While one of the torpedoes failed, it appeared that 2 had found their target. As the waters of the Pacific settled around them, Commander Yamaguchi ordered his submarine to resurface and head toward the site of the attack on the United States Navy ship. Through the periscope, Yamaguchi surveyed the aftermath. Now, all that remained of the mysterious ship that had revealed itself only 2 hours earlier was a dark pool of oil and various debris. Convinced that he had successfully targeted his objective, Commander Yamaguchi plotted a course back to Truk. The I-176 submarine and its crew received a hero's welcome on November 18th, even being invited to dine with the Commander-in-Chief of the 6th Fleet. However, the situation was far bleaker on the American side. After the Allies completed major operations in the Gilberts on November 30th, Corvina received orders via dispatch to transfer command to Commander Task Force 72. Later that year, she was also selected for refit and duty in an Australian port. No response was received. The same message was transmitted 3 times on 2 consecutive nights. Due to frequent Pacific interference by the Japanese, Naval Command assumed that Corvina had transitioned to Commander Task Force 72, despite her lack of acknowledgement. Another message instructed her to proceed to Tulagi and rendezvous with a surface escort vessel, but she failed to appear. Multiple subsequent transmissions yielded no results. It became increasingly evident that something was terribly amiss. For some inexplicable reason, even though they had received a clear warning of a Japanese submarine in their designated patrol area, Corvina fell into an ambush and likely met its demise at the hands of I-176. As recalled by Lieutenant Commander William Kinsella, a member of Task Force 53, quote, "We never saw Corvina again. The Japanese sub got her." Since no sign of Corvina had been seen or heard since its departure from Johnston Island on November 6th, it was finally reported as presumed lost with all 82 crew members on December 23rd, after repeated attempts to establish contact and issue orders went unanswered. However, the loss of the Corvina cruiser was not officially announced until March 14, 1944. It marked the only instance of an Imperial Japanese Navy submarine sinking a United States Navy counterpart. The loss of the USS Corvina was not in vain. The U.S. Navy would ultimately exact their revenge. After their one-of-a-kind success against a U.S. submarine, I-176 and her crew returned to mainland Japan for a thorough overhaul starting in November. On February 1, 1944, the submarine welcomed a new commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Okada Hideo. 2 months later, when the submarine returned to Truk and its vicinity, it was tasked with resupply missions to Buka Island, located at the far western end of the Solomon Islands archipelago. During one of these missions, on May 12th, I-176, while positioned north of Buka Island, was spotted by an American patrol aircraft. Upon receiving the aircraft signal regarding the submarine's location, the destroyers USS Franks, USS Haggard, and USS Johnston were dispatched to the scene. 6 months after the tragedy of the Corvina, the United States would finally have a chance for payback. At a distance of 2,800 yards, Haggard and Franks initiated 5 separate attacks on the submarine. The attack was so forceful that the former was slightly damaged by the exploding depth charges. As the final 2 attacks unfolded, the destroyers detected a massive underwater explosion that sent a shockwave through the sea. Early the next day, Franks released a pattern of 13 additional depth charges for good measure. In the daylight, the destroyers detected a 7-mile-long oil slick, fragments of debris, sandalwood, cork, a solitary sandal, and paper bearing Japanese markings on the surface. Similar to the Corvina incident, no survivors emerged. The I-176 submarine was officially declared lost with all 103 crew members on June 11, 1944, and was subsequently removed from the official Japanese Navy list the following month. With just over a year remaining in the war, this notably one-sided submarine battle remained the sole instance in which an Imperial Japanese Navy submarine sank a United States Navy submarine. This achievement, rather than being a testament to their capabilities, was an anomaly in Imperial Japanese naval history, given the underwhelming performance of their submarine fleet. To most, I-176 had simply gotten lucky. The KD-7 type submarines, including the I-176, exemplified the Empire's mismanagement of its submarine force. In fact, 7 out of the 10 completed models were lost within their first year of service. The remaining vessels encountered difficulties in executing successful attacks due to advancements in U.S. anti-submarine weaponry, technology, and tactics. While I-176 was the most successful vessel of its class, by October 1944, with the loss of I-177, the entire KD-7 type was stricken from the Imperial Japanese Navy's order of battle.